Speech Kids! Speech Kids!
You're on campus. This is an interesting time. I know a few professors, but what's it like being on campus during a pandemic?
You know, it's really interesting because at the same time it is simultaneously like insane and simultaneously like not insane. Like I know what's happening. There's a pandemic, there's things going on, but the way that data flows, or rather doesn't flow on campus, it feels like I don't actually know what's going on. And there are days that, other than like seeing masks around, I'm like, are we in a pandemic? Because what's happening in my state doesn't really tell me that we are. So it's this really interesting of like, it's like Schrodinger's professor. I am simultaneously in a pandemic and not in a pandemic at the same time. So
I don't really keep up on Iowa. I don't follow them on Twitter or anything. Is there a great anti-mask movement in Iowa and a great pro-mask movement at the UNI?
Yeah, so well, at the university, thankfully, all three universities in the state, there is a mandate that you have to wear a face covering on campus, and that face covering has to be a mask unless there's a good reason that it can be a face shield. So that's a rule on campus, which is good. But whether or not that actually happens, especially outside of the classrooms, in the classrooms, the students are doing pretty good with it. But in the state of Iowa, the governor has refused to pass a mask mandate, and there's a lot of people who are just like, masks, we don't need masks, there's no pandemic, masks don't help, where's the science? Like, that's a lot of people in Iowa. And so
they sound like people who always asked, where's the science? That's the interesting part, is all of a sudden these conspiracy theories are so concerned with science that does exist.
Yes.
Oddly enough, it's every medical and scientifically driven professional seems to be supporting these ideas, but
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, and it's crazy because we have, every week it's like I've got students, a lot of students who've been in and out of classes and rehearsals because they're in quarantine. And so we Zoom them in, we do this like hybrid thing. I mean, my in-person class, that's like a hybrid class. When I'm in person, I am at a 6-foot distance from them, wearing my face shield and my mask. And the photo that many people may have seen on the internet of me doing that, looking like Rene Russo from Outbreak. Which
now the modern versions, you look like Andy Reid, coach of Kansas City Chiefs.
I'm like, I don't get that, but because I don't watch football, but like, I'm believing you right now that's
a big fella who's won his first Super Bowl last year, and he's the one on frankly, all of the head coaches of the NFL might as well have the sneeze guard masks, because they all seem to be repulsed by having it on, because they want to pull them down and they want to yell and spit in the face of everyone who comes within, inches of them. I mean, they're still up in the face of like officials going like, and you just.
The one thing though about them is that they're actually getting tested, because everybody's getting tested. Whereas on my campus, there's no universal testing. So at any point, everyone on campus, I should say, it's not really Schrodinger's professor, it's really Schrodinger's campus, because at the same time, everyone on campus simultaneously does and does not have COVID, because nobody knows until they get tested because of asymptomatic carriers. So it's really interesting, and like students are in and out, and like one week they're quarantining, the next week it's another student, because any time that a student spends more than 15 minutes with another person who gets tested positive, they have to go into quarantine for 10 or 12 days or something like that. So it's crazy how many students are not able to come to classes, or then I've had several students who actually have gotten COVID. Thankfully, all of my students have had mild cases, which has been, really good in that sense. Like, I don't know what I would do if any of them were really sick, but it's just insanity. I'm like, simultaneously I'm like, oh, this is great, we're still able to learn, we're still able to do this, and then I think, oh my god, people are dying, why am I teaching? Why is any of this happening right now? So
I mean, I'm very anti-death, but I'm very pro not having to go places. So yes. I'm a big fan of all of this remote everything. I mean, I venture out here and there. But at no point am I like yearning for the day that I'll be back in person doing just about anything besides stand up. And for your students, I don't know, I know me. And if I had this situation, I'd be like, oh, damn, I just saw a guy had COVID. I got to stay home. I guess I got to zoom into this class too. No way would you ever see me walking on campus.
I bet like math class, yeah, but theater classes where we actually get to come in and like do cool shit, a lot of them are really missing, especially like our acting classes, all those kinds of things that are just totally weird and awkward and different, being at a distance, everyone wearing masks, having to be spread out. Like it's just not a great situation. Like my colleagues are amazing, you know, like we're all coming up with all kinds of crazy ways to make it work, but it's just still not what the students want. Like they're there to like do theater and touch each other consensually in a non-sexual way. You know, that's why they come to theater school. So it's tough on them. But I agree, like actually one of the perks of living in Iowa is there is nothing outside my house that I miss. My house is really nice. It's like the nicest part of the state of Iowa, I think, is my house. And so I don't miss anything else outside. So in that sense,
they're just like, well, come to Iowa. The nicest part is the Osatinsky residence. Or
yeah, it's true.
Are you Herrick now?
No, we're Osatinsky and Herrick because
you're hyphenate.
Well, we're not hyphenate. I'm Osatinsky. He's Herrick because I am a liberated woman and I don't need to take my husband's name.
Wow, you're like a couple of celebrities.
I know, right?
That public.
Well, I already had like 2 college degrees and a bunch of like professional credits on my resume before we got married. So I was like, I'm not changing that shit. So
I'll be honest, and I don't want to disrespect my family. I would love to take anyone else's last name.
Well, I think you should. That's like the feminist thing to do. If you get married, taking your wife's name, like that's what a statement.
I'm dating a lady. Her last name is Forrest. I want it.
Well, there you go. So if that ever happens, you know, if you don't scare her away anytime soon, you know.
Highly unlikely.
Speech Kids! 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 Speech Kids!